Welcome to Streaming News Network, Evening Edition, by J. Claude McDaniel. News without the hype and biased reporting. Please like and subscribe.
This is J. Claude McDaniel with Streaming News Network. A major law enforcement operation unfolded Wednesday in the central California city of Avenal, where investigators executed search warrants at 7 locations, including City Hall, a community center, and several private residences connected to members of the city's leadership. Officials with the Kings County District Attorney's Office and the Kings County Sheriff's Office confirmed the searches are part of an active criminal investigation. However, authorities have not announced what evidence they were seeking, whether anything was seized, or if criminal charges are anticipated. The investigation comes during an ongoing political standoff that began after voters overwhelmingly approved the recall of Mayor Alvaro Preciado and 3 city council members earlier this year. Despite the certified election results, the recalled officials voted to remain in office, arguing the recall process was not legally authorized. That decision has triggered court challenges, heated public meetings, and growing frustration among residents. The legal dispute is now expected to continue in court on July 9, where a judge will consider whether the recalled officials may legally continue serving. City Hall is expected to reopen Thursday as investigators continue their work and the community awaits further developments. This is J. Claude McDaniel for Streaming News Network. The United States Department of Justice has announced fraud charges against 15 individuals, including 11 migrants who prosecutors say were living in the United States unlawfully, in connection with an alleged public benefits fraud scheme valued at more than $1,400,000. According to federal authorities, the defendants are accused of using stolen identities and fraudulent applications to obtain benefits from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly known as food assistance, along with other taxpayer-funded public aid programs. Investigators allege the scheme diverted funds intended for eligible recipients, raising concerns about identity theft, program integrity, and the protection of public resources. Federal prosecutors say the charges are the result of a multi-agency investigation. The case will now move through the federal court system, where each defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Officials say protecting taxpayer-funded assistance programs from fraud remains a priority as investigators continue to examine the full scope of the alleged operation. This is J. Claude McDaniel for Streaming News Network. 3 women in Texas are facing criminal charges following an alleged group assault outside a nightclub that investigators say may have been motivated by racial hostility. According to arrest documents, witnesses told police they heard individuals shouting phrases including, "Free Carmelo," before the confrontation began. Investigators also allege someone in the crowd made threats directed at white women moments before the victim exited the nightclub. Police say the victim was then attacked by several women, suffering injuries to the back of her head and to one of her eyes before a security guard intervened and helped her escape. Authorities have charged Ciarianne Fuller, D.G. Brown, and Alana Mumphrey, all 21 years old, with assault causing bodily injury. Investigators also allege that one suspect posted a message on social media before the incident suggesting an intent to engage in fights. Detectives say they later recovered messages discussing the assault after video of the incident circulated online. Law enforcement officials say they are monitoring online activity for possible retaliation and are coordinating with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, although they report no credible evidence of a broader threat to public safety at this time. The phrase, "Free Carmelo," is believed to reference Carmelo Anthony, who was recently sentenced to 35 years in prison in connection with the 2025 fatal stabbing of Austin Metcalf at a Texas high school track meet. This is J. Claude McDaniel for Streaming News Network. Hedge fund billionaire Ken Griffin has quietly completed the purchase of an entire condominium tower in Miami as part of an ambitious redevelopment project. Over a period of roughly 3 years, Griffin reportedly used a network of limited liability companies to acquire all 138 residential units, along with the building's ground floor commercial space, for an estimated $125 million. The property, known as the Solaris condominium in Miami's Brickell district, is expected to be demolished to make way for a large mixed-use development. Plans include a new headquarters for Griffin's hedge fund, residential apartments, parking facilities, and the possibility of a hotel. Reports indicate many owners received offers above prevailing market values, with some choosing to sell early while others negotiated higher prices as the acquisition campaign continued. The redevelopment is part of Griffon's broader investment strategy following the relocation of Citadel and Citadel Securities from Chicago to Miami. The overall project is expected to represent an investment of several $billion in the city's growing financial district. Supporters view the development as another sign of Miami's emergence as a major financial hub, while critics continue to debate the impact of large-scale redevelopment on housing availability and neighborhood character. This is J. Claude McDaniel for Streaming News Network. Federal immigration authorities have reportedly arrested more than 10,000 people over a 5-day period as the Trump administration accelerates immigration enforcement nationwide. According to administration officials, Immigration and Customs Enforcement has increased its daily enforcement activity, with one day reportedly exceeding 2,400 arrests. Officials say the effort is part of the administration's broader goal of increasing deportations and targeting individuals who are in the country illegally, particularly those accused or convicted of serious crimes. The increased enforcement follows recent United States Supreme Court rulings that cleared the way for the administration to end temporary protected status for certain groups of immigrants, potentially affecting hundreds of thousands of people. The enforcement campaign has also generated legal challenges. Immigration advocates and some lawmakers have questioned arrests made at or near immigration courthouses and have raised concerns over due process. Another widely publicized case involved the temporary detention of a Catholic nun in Texas, who was later released after members of Congress intervened. Federal officials maintain they are carrying out the administration's immigration policies while continuing to enforce existing immigration laws. Court challenges involving several aspects of the enforcement strategy remain ongoing. This is J. Claude McDaniel of Streaming News Network. A growing dispute has emerged between federal officials and New York State over the effectiveness of the state's Medicaid fraud enforcement program. First Assistant United States Attorney John A. Sarcone III criticized New York's Medicaid Fraud Control Unit, calling its performance a dramatic failure. He cited federal data indicating the unit averaged only 9 criminal indictments annually between 2021 and 2025, a significant decline from previous years. The criticism follows a decision by the United States Department of Health and Human Services to decertify the unit, placing approximately $60 million in annual federal grant funding at risk. Federal officials argue New York has produced fewer fraud indictments and convictions than several other large states. New York Attorney General Letitia James strongly rejected the criticism, calling the action politically motivated and pointing to her office's recovery of more than $627 million in Medicaid funds since 2019, along with several recent fraud prosecutions. The state now has until September to seek restoration of its federal certification and funding, while legal and political disputes between the Attorney General's office and federal authorities continue in the courts. This is J. Claude McDaniel with Streaming News Network. The Supreme Court of the United States has declined to halt a court order imposing an $800 per day civil contempt fine against investigative journalist Catherine Herridge after she refused to reveal confidential sources. The case stems from a civil lawsuit filed by scientist Yanping Chen, who alleges federal officials unlawfully leaked private information during a Federal Bureau of Investigation that never resulted in criminal charges. A federal judge ruled that identifying the source of the leak is essential to Chen's Privacy Act lawsuit and ordered Herridge to answer questions during a deposition. After declining to identify her sources, Herridge was held in civil contempt, resulting in the daily financial penalty. Chief Justice John Roberts had temporarily paused the fine while the court reviewed the emergency appeal. However, the court ultimately declined to intervene. Justice Brett Kavanaugh was the only justice publicly noted as supporting a temporary stay. The case has drawn national attention from media organizations and press freedom advocates, who argue that compelling journalists to reveal confidential sources could discourage whistleblowers and hinder investigative reporting. Attorneys for Chen maintain that identifying the source is necessary to determine whether federal privacy laws were violated. This is J. Claude McDaniel with Streaming News Network. New details have emerged regarding an ongoing federal corruption investigation involving individuals formerly associated with California Governor Gavin Newsom. According to reports, Democratic political consultant Alexis Podesta cooperated with the Federal Bureau of Investigation by secretly recording conversations during an investigation centered on former Newsom Chief of Staff Dana Williamson. Williamson pleaded guilty earlier this year to federal charges that include conspiracy to commit bank and wire fraud, filing a false tax return, and making false statements to federal investigators. Prosecutors allege the case involved the misuse of funds from a dormant political campaign account. Reports also indicate that numerous Sacramento area political figures received notifications from the Federal Bureau of Investigation informing them that some of their communications had been intercepted during the investigation. Governor Newsom has acknowledged that he, his wife, and members of his political circle are the subjects of a federal investigation, while strongly denying wrongdoing. He has characterized the investigation as politically motivated. At this time, neither Governor Newsom nor his wife has been charged with any crime, and federal authorities have not publicly announced any criminal allegations against them. The investigation remains active, and additional developments are expected as federal authorities continue their review. This is J. Claude McDaniel with Streaming News Network. Authorities in Alabama are investigating a tragic early morning fire that claimed the lives of 2 University of Alabama students during a hunting trip. Officials say the fire broke out shortly after 1:30 in the morning on Wednesday at a residence near Evergreen in Evergreen. 4 people were inside the home when the fire began. 2 occupants managed to escape and were transported for medical treatment after suffering injuries. 2 others were unable to escape. The victims have been identified as James Hensley II, age 19, and Mark Mosteller, age 21, both from Mobile. Authorities say the 4 students were on a hunting trip together when the fire occurred. Investigators from the Conecuh County Coroner's Office, the Evergreen Police Department, and the Alabama State Fire Marshal's Office are working to determine the cause and origin of the blaze. Officials have not released additional details as the investigation continues and have asked for privacy for the families affected.
Thank you for listening to Streaming News Network videos and our short reports. Please like and subscribe to our news channel.